Welcome back to another episode of the Black Bullion Show. Now, Andrew Hecht sees similarities in how gold behaved in 2008 and now. What are those similarities? I'll reveal that shortly. But first, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe to the channel. Also, please give the video a like to help get this economic evangelism out there to the masses. And if you would just like to get a quick synopsis of the video without having to watch the full thing, check it out in the description below. Let's get started. So here are the similarities that Andrew Hecht sees between 2008's gold action and now. So first, the initial push, and also I should say silver as well. The initial push to the downside. Now, obviously, there was an initial push to the downside recently in March with the gold and the silver price, and obviously silver has remained kind of sunken. And the same thing happened in 2008. He also mentions as a second point that the Fed and central banks pump the world with so much liquidity. In fact, in detail, he further mentions that between July and September of 2008, the U.S. Treasury borrowed $530 billion. And just last week, Mnuchin announced borrowing $3 trillion for the second quarter of 2020. The money supply is growing dramatically, and he says that this is why the money supply, loose monetary policy, is bullish for gold and bearish for fiat. So this is his argument. Now, to be fair, I expect gold and silver to perform well in general. But the kindling of the money supply will need a match to burn this whole thing down. So you may be asking, well, what's that match? It is this. Once it loads up, there it is. It is velocity. Now, I've spoken about this many times on this channel, but here is a quick graph of where we are and the quarter two estimate of where velocity will be. Now, this is new. This is the estimate of where quarter two will be. So in between, so roughly around 1.1 will be the velocity of cash. Do you see how quickly things have dropped? Just how dramatically things have dropped here. So obviously, we hit a peak in velocity in the late 90s, and it's just slowly gone downhill ever since. Now, do you see this quick drop here? This is during the recession, and this is where we are right now. So just a very steep drop. So why is velocity important? Because when you take the money supply, you need to multiply it by the velocity in order to get essentially a reflection of GDP. Now, if there is no growth, if you're constantly trending downward in velocity, you have no economy essentially. In fact, that's what Jim Rickard says here as he's referring to this chart. He says, worried about money printing causing inflation? Don't. Sorry, Milton. Inflation is caused by velocity, which is psychological. $5 trillion times zero equals zero. Without velocity, there is no economy. Here's where velocity is headed, and he's pointing to this quarter two estimate. Now, in order to get the world changing hyperinflation that we are expecting, we need the velocity to hit an inflection point. It needs to hit a hard stop somewhere, and then it needs to change its course in the opposite direction. We need for that to happen in order to get the hyperinflation that we are expecting. Now, how much velocity we need for that is, kind of up in the air right now. Obviously we can't predict those kinds of things, but obviously we're heading towards zero. So we need to make sure that that gets changed. Now, obviously, the government's going to do whatever they can to try to bring that up because they don't want a GDP or GDP to be so low that there is no GDP. Again, we're closer to zero than we are to, anything that looks somewhat decent. So Until then, gold and silver will perform well. And we need to stack gold and silver. But just know that we won't get that hyperinflation that we are expecting until we hit that inflection point in velocity. But during that time, gold will still perform well. Why? Because it performed well during this period, and this is halfway between where we are now and how we began this downward trend in velocity. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Am I missing something here as far as expectations of hyperinflation? Let me know. Please course correct me if that is the case. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like. Please subscribe if you are new. Thanks again. It's Black Bullion.